Hello and welcome to Hearsay. As usual, I am Diane Neal, your host, and with me today, we are so lucky. Danny is not here, but that's okay. We have the world's greatest guest, so we're going to just start with the interview. Brian Balthazar, thank you so much for being here today.
Hello, good to
And
see you. Thank you so much.
and fitting into this in the crazy schedule and everything else. So I don't know if
Thank
you
you.
want to tell everyone where we actually met back in the day.
A million years ago. Well, it feels like a million years ago
It's a
to
million
me,
years
but it
ago.
was a long time ago. We were on the plaza of the Today Show. I was a producer, you were a guest, and you were about to do a segment. And I will say, I, I mean, as you know, like the Today Show is kind of this like hotbed of like celebrities running back and forth, actors and actresses, and then there's like somebody from the UN over there, and like so it's a really fun melting pot of all these different people. But you stood out as just like, because I'm used to seeing you on TV very serious. Obviously,
Oh
you're
yeah,
you're you're
yeah.
you're, you're prosecuting sexual offenders, and but you were like hilarious, and I was like, Dennis, you have to. My dentist is my partner. I'm like, she was like hilariously funny, and I felt like, oh, you are that person, and I'm sure you get this a lot. You are that person that people are like, I want to be your friend. You know what I mean? So that's a very nice thing to say about a
But
person.
the same goes for you too. I mean, like you totally
Thank
stood
you.
out in like a universe of like producers, and like you've had the most amazing career. And like one of the things that producer Danny and I wanted to do, because it is Pride Month, and and we really want to celebrate, because a lot of my fans are young LGBTQ.
Mm-hmm.
They're not like anywhere. They're like where we grew up. Like I grew up in
Yeah.
Littleton, Colorado.
Yeah.
You grew up in Red, Pennsylvania.
Yes. Yes.
Like yeah.
Totally.
And 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 sometimes you never feel like it's going to end or it's going to get better.
Sure. Yeah.
So one of the
Oh,
things we
sure.
wanted to focus on like this month in particular is like, and that's why, because you're such an icon and you made this life for yourself.
Are you reading
It's
the wrong bio? Oh,
no,
sorry.
I'm dead serious. Like you made
Thank you. Thank you.
you worked so hard to like make
Thank
your
you.
own work and make your own everything, and move from thing to thing to thing
Thank
and
you.
keep like growing and making things better and
Oh,
finding your place in the world and having to do it all. And I don't think I'm wrong about this, the hard way. I don't think anything came
yeah.
easy.
You're right. Thank you. Thank about the hard way.
Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you. Like I didn't have a roadmap. I didn't really have anyone. And to your point, like I where I grew up and during the time that I grew up, there was no like gay youth group. Gay wasn't even an option. Like I wasn't
Right.
allowed to.
It wasn't even an option. That's
I
the best
wasn't.
way to say it.
They didn't want me to watch Three's Company because Jack's character was pretending to be gay.
Pretending to be gay.
Yeah. Right. So like I was pretending to be straight. So I'm like, oh boy, like I mean, because I knew at a very young age. I mean, or at least I knew I wasn't that. You know what I
You
mean?
wasn't, yeah,
Like
you weren't like
yeah,
like everyone else
I
was.
wasn't like
Yeah.
most of the other kids or the other guys. So it was very interesting to grow up in that environment. To your point, like I also didn't have anybody really who could really tell me how to apply for colleges or how to pursue a career, get an internship. I was just like, well, let's do this, let's do that. I don't know. It took me
Right.
a
Like
while. It took me a
come
while.
from those places, like, and it's like I remember like sitting down with like iced tea once, because like I didn't know what, like I was like, do I get a business man? Because I had no one to ask. Like I didn't have
Right,
anyone in the
right,
industry. There's no one I knew that was even remotely associated with this business or
right.
had any idea, or even went to like East Coast
Yeah.
schools, that
Yeah, totally.
that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yep.
And so you're just kind of learning by mistake and feeling it out and trying to feel what you have to
Mhm.
do.
Yeah.
But so, so like I'm wildly impressed with you. Like
Oh
I'm
my
I'm
God. Well,
wildly
it's
impressed.
mutual. It is so mutual. Well, and I love, obviously, people are so familiar with your acting, but also your comedy. Like that is hard to do.
We,
And
as you well know, because
oh,
you have done an
thank
insane
you.
amount of stand up
Thank
and
you.
warm
Thank
up
you.
and like yeah.
At the same place you're doing it, that your special is at Stand Up New York, and I was like, wow, it's like it brought back memories. I didn't keep doing it as much. I'd love to get back into doing it, but it's just don't you find it such a fun thing to be up there and be your own boss for 5 to 30 minutes or
Yeah.
whatever, just like
It's
on your
kind
own
of the
terms.
most fun thing you can do in the world, like when it's going well. Like when it's going badly, like I'm sure
Yeah.
we've all had those moments and you're
Yes.
just like,
Yes. Yes.
ooh, there's almost nothing more
Yeah.
painful. It's almost like
Yeah.
exquisitely painful when
It's
you're
true.
bombing.
Yeah.
Or like,
Drew Carey said, you only feel as good as your last performance. And boy, because like if you, I can't say that I bombed completely, but I've had moments where like, well, that was a little flat or a little
yeah,
weak, or
yeah.
and I'm notorious for like omitting a word from a sentence, like an important word. Like, then I don't even know it at the time. Like, this has happened a number of occasions, often on live TV. Like, I will say the one word that is actually somewhat integral to getting my point across, and I don't even know I did it.
I call that the Sting problem. It's a long story, but it basically
Yeah.
ended up as like one night at a club, and like Sting and I were sharing a bathroom. It was like one of those like first, unisex bathrooms. It was really
Yeah.
weird, and like I feel like our urine was commingling. And he came out of the bathroom like dancing, and he's like, "This is the world," and I'm like, "Did he
Wow.
leave out a word?" Like,
Right.
so anytime,
Right. You're like, I mean, he's not wrong, but like, is there?
is it profound or did he just leave something out? Yeah, I'm like,
With any others. I was next
yes.
to a urinal, not a stall, a urinal with Nick Lachey
Really?
at Sirius XM radio. And a woman recently asked me, like, what do you do when when guys are in the urinal
Yeah.
next to each other? And there's like a protocol. There is like it takes a real confident person to like have conversation, but most of the time you're like very safe. You're not like,
Like, look
like you're,
straight ahead.
yeah,
Yeah,
like straight
like
ahead, like establish that
mhm.
you're not posing a threat. And in fact, there's protocol, like if there's 3 stalls, you obviously don't go in the one next to
Then one
the
next
person,
to them. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
5, there's a whole system that's unwritten system of how you're supposed to use a urinal wall. Anyway, I digress. So you've been in the bathroom with a lot of people, but Sting, that's
I
incredible.
was in the bathroom once with Iman, and, okay, why did I just forget her name? I can't believe I just forgot her name. She's like, everyone kinda hates her, but she just did that great part on We Crashed. Uh,
Oh, not Anne Hathaway. It was,
yes, Anne
is it Anna?
Hathaway.
Oh my
Yeah, sorry.
gosh, wow.
Not that
I'm
everyone kinda hates it, but, like, she kinda gets that Gwyneth Paltrow, like, like
Yes. Actually,
yeah.
this is something I still feel bad about. So, I was once, because I used to get called quite a bit by I can't remember if it was the Daily News or the New York Post to talk about celebrities, and I was called to talk about Anne Hathaway, and I didn't realize until, like, a portion of the interview was complete that they're like, it was an article about why everyone hates her, and I was like, I couldn't I really didn't give them what they wanted, thank God,
Right.
because but I still feel like, oh, just by being a part of it, she had to have read it. And I feel like I want to, like, if I ever see Anne Hathaway, I won't say anything because she
Right.
won't remember, but I'll still be eaten alive by it. But did you say anything to Sting? I feel like there's like a Fields of Gold reference waiting to happen in there, but like, I wouldn't be able to. But did you say anything to him?
I was just like, "Hey, how's it
Yeah, right,
going?"
right.
Like, "How you doing?"
Yeah, and then you like
'Cause
can't shake hands because you
yeah,
just,
and
yeah.
like I know Mickey Sumner's like, she'd been on SVU and stuff like that. I'm like, "I
Okay,
know your
yeah.
daughter," and he's like,
Right, yeah.
"Hey," I'm like, just like a lot of like,
Wow.
there's just a lot of movement, and then he
Right.
just danced away. Like it
This
was,
is the world. I love
yeah,
it.
it is. I'm just like, is there something else that fits her? But I always find it, hilarious. Is it probably like you because you've met like everyone between all the jobs. So, uh, like, just like a small rundown of your
Sure.
career.
Okay.
Like, so, I mean, where did you start? Where do you feel like you started?
Well, I spent many years working at Williams-Sonoma in different malls across the country, and then
Yeah.
finally broke into TV at a local station in Boston, which then took me to MSNBC, writing and producing, took me to MSNBC, then NBC, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm at NBC.
And by the
Like,
way,
that
this
was
is
the dream.
fascinating. What did you do at MSNBC? Is this when they were
Oh.
like only in Jersey? Like they had that Jersey
Yes, yes,
off?
it's
Okay.
Secaucus. I mean,
Yes.
what did I do? I took antidepressants and drank a lot of Diet Coke. No, I didn't have a doctor yet, so I didn't take antidepressants, but I wanted to. But it was embroiled. I senior produced Lester Holt's. It was his first year at the network. It was my first year at the network. Look at him now. Look at me now. But
Stop.
but
Stop.
no, but he was just like this amazing guy. So I senior produced a news show with him, and then worked with Ashley Banfield. Lots of hard news, which
Oh
was
my God, I
really
love
not my
Ashley
speed.
Banfield. Where the
I
hell
did
did
too.
Ashley Banfield go?
She's at WGN. She's hosting a show at 9 o'clock on WGN News
Is
Nation.
she?
Yeah,
The last time I
yeah,
talked to her, she was at CNN, and they
yeah.
do that thing where they wake up celebrities like in the middle of the night and then just talk to them about whatever's on. Like, it was a
I mean, wow,
and
that's a crapshoot. I'm always afraid of cold calling people, so that would be my nightmare. They have to know the call is coming, right? They have
yeah,
to
no,
know.
they tell you the call's coming, but you don't know when the call's coming. So you just kind of
Oh,
wake up, and then it was just like a whole bunch of questions. But whatever.
it's my
I had a
nightmare.
good time.
Yeah.
Okay, so NBC, you're like, oh my gosh, I've made it, right? Because that's how you
Yes.
feel.
Yeah. And then Kathy Lee was joining the Today Show, the Fourth Hour with Hoda. And I got chosen to run that show for a while. And then a year later, I decided I got an offer to be a network executive at HGTV, Home and Garden, completely different genre,
Right.
completely different line of work. And I'm like, they're offering me a job. I don't know how I would have gotten this if I wanted, tried to. So I was like, yes, let's do it. So I
Yeah,
did
I'll do
that.
it.
Then I did that for 8 years. And then I got offered a position as the co-executive producer at The View. I got there, and I will be honest, it wasn't like it wasn't the right fit.
Yeah.
So I reached back out to HGTV and I asked them if they'd have me back. I was afraid to do that because I was like, does it look like I'm quitting? Like, well, I am quitting, but it doesn't look like I'm giving up. I didn't want to look like I was giving up, but I'm like, I also want to be happier. And I don't think ABC really, I think they wanted to do more newsy and I'm more entertainment. So it's like, let's just agree. Let's
just agree it's not happening and move our separate ways.
So then all through this time, I'm trying to do other things for myself, like on camera appearances and stand up, anything that was like a little bit more my own.
Yes.
And produce myself. And so then during HGTV, I was back on the Today Show as a guest and going on any show that would happen.
Like doing all these amazing segments about
really
celebrities,
fun. So much fun. So fun for like 5 minutes, whatever, 5 minutes at a time.
Like the greatest.
And then I left went back to HGTV, left, and now I have a production company where I executive produce shows for a couple right now for Home and Garden Television. I mean, I will produce a show for anybody need a show. I will produce.
Oh my God, I need a show. Let's do a show.
Yeah, let's sell a show. Yeah. That is what I try and do, is sell shows and run them. And then I can still do all these other things because I have my own company. So no one can say, Brian, Willie, did you need to wear that wig on TikTok the other day?
Right. You're like, yeah, I did.
I did. Yeah. But you want me to delete it? Because I still, sometimes I still have a little
there's so many things out there that I'm like, that was a poor choice, Diane, but I'm like, living with it now.
Right. I kind of feel like, well, don't you feel like now, like part of our lives at this stage is to be like, kind of like, screw it. Like, okay, really? If that 30-second video I did on TikTok is that upsetting to you? I don't do upsetting stuff. It's just odd. I do odd things on TikTok. So I'm like, okay, or Instagram. I'm like, okay, if this is going to be the reason someone doesn't want to do something with me, then maybe I'm not supposed to do that thing with them.
I'm not supposed to do it, right? Because it's like the end. Although I do have to say, I'm incredibly grateful that we weren't like young during this age of social media. Because seriously, I would have been canceled 100,000 times over for just being dumb. Being dumb.
And I'm glad I wasn't around when we all had our phones and people were asking for nudes. Because back then I would like, sure, yeah,
especially when we were so cute. Like I look back now and I'm like, I was good looking. Yeah, I would have been taking like so many.
I'd be like, you want to see this? Okay, got it. So I'm really glad because the internet's forever. It's really hard to escape it.
Yeah, I don't know how anyone like raises children in like this era of like it's crazy.
I know.
Like one of these kids that I love and like mentor, I was up until the middle of the night last night talking to her. She was having the worst time because like her social group had just ousted her for the dumbest thing in the world, and she was like screenshotting like the text she was getting from everybody, and they were vicious, vicious.
Kids, I will say, kids are smart and mean. They know how to hit for the jugular. They know how to go for the jugular, and they know their own insecurities are likely someone else's, so they go right after it. Childhood was hard. I actually really was not. I did want to grow up, but not because I wanted to escape my parents. I thought I would escape some of that pettiness, and even though some of it still does exist,
I'm always like I remember being like shocked because I was like a super nerdy kid. Like nobody talked to me unless they needed their homework done, like that kind of thing. Putting like garbage cans in lockers in high school.
Oh no!
Yeah, like super nerd, not like a theater nerd, like a science nerd. So like would answer questions from inside the locker.
I love that expression of the geeks shall inherit the earth. Like the smart ones always do better in the long run.
They always do better in the long run. But man, if someone had asked me like, hey, Diane, do you want to like just peace out now or like go back and relive high school? I'd be like, I've had a great life. I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
No, hell no.
Yeah.
I mean, it must have felt really good because then you were like modeling. Like, I mean, come on. That must have been amazing to be like, oh, hi.
Well, it always
made me. Did you go to the class reunion?
I never thought about like revenge or anything like that. And I've never been to like a class. It was weird too because I skipped grades. So like I was so much younger. Like, so I graduated from high school like a couple weeks after I was 16. So
wow.
So like nobody, like no one was even the same age. No one was like around. Like I was such like an outcast. And I was like, and I'm like, but that's also too like, for everybody at home that's listening that like, okay, life is miserable. You get to you get to move on, and
Mm-hmm.
you get to move to like places like New York, and
Mm-hmm.
and have a
Totally.
life that's so much better, and like have
Yes.
community and stuff
Yeah.
that's so far outside of what you can even imagine right now,
Mm-hmm.
that just like hang on, like it's gonna be okay. It's all gonna
Yes.
be okay. You
I
just have to
agree. I
hang on.
agree. Yeah, you're building strength and you create your family. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do have an amazing family, and it's amazing how much time has healed and kind of it built understanding. That's why I
Yeah,
will say I my mom has passed, but my dad is still alive, and my brother is we're still very close. So it's like, and my brother was always great, but I mean, it's interesting how like I think we are so quick to dismiss people who don't understand us right out of the
yeah.
gate and cancel people. Sometimes, don't get me wrong, sometimes we need to cancel people, but I do think for me and the relationships that I've had, I'm so glad that I was just like, let's just kind of let's do a slow build and understand that we don't understand each other right now, and we don't have to talk every day. And then, but I have a partner, Dennis, who, when I first came out to my parents, they didn't want me to ever bring anyone home. This was before I knew Dennis.
Right.
But come like flash forward to them hanging out with Dennis at dinner and laughing so hard and loving him and asking about him all the time. And that did not happen overnight. And I
Yeah.
think some of the importance of changing people's minds is not shouting at them on Facebook, but being like, come experience what I'm really like and what my life is like. And then they understand that we're all human beings, and it was a wonderful result in
And
the end.
then it's like one of those it always like cracked me up too. It's like when you see like like even the kid I was talking to the other night, when people talk about nature versus nurture and all that stuff, and I'm like, well, obviously it's nature, because who picks like having,
Right,
like who
right, right.
chooses like
This would be great. This is going to be great.
like life is hard enough as
Right,
it is. Like
right.
nobody picks like just
It's
like
so
why?
it's so true.
Why?
Absolutely.
But there
Yeah.
is that beautiful thing about like time and about letting it go, about and not forcing it. I mean, that's why even and your like social media is the same way. I always laugh because I lost so like when I ran for Congress, I lost so many hundreds of thousands of followers. It was hilarious.
Oh my
But
God.
like I was trying to make it like I used to always talk about politics and this and that and the other
Mm,
thing. And then at some point I was just like, you know what? No, this is a good place for everyone. Everyone can
mhm,
come.
mhm.
Everyone's ideas are respected. Everyone believes what they believe for a reason. Let's all just be nice to each other,
I
because there's
agree.
such a
Yeah.
shortage. There's
Mhm.
like there's just like no
Absolutely.
good place on the planet.
I agree.
Yeah, and it's weird. Like neuroscientifically, it takes it's a real thing. It takes 30 seconds of a positive exposure to somebody different than yourself to change someone's opinion.
That
And then
right. I
in
love
their
that.
life,
I love that.
it ripples out eight into their social circles,
Wow.
eight rings
Wow.
out. So every time,
Wow.
yeah, isn't that
That's very
wild? So
interesting.
every time, and that's my Harvard tuition paying for that fact.
Well,
So
that's a great one and really useful,
really
That's
useful.
really, yeah.
So if you're, even no matter how awful someone else is or jerky or ignorant or whatever it is, if you
Mhm.
can just hang on for 30 seconds, be
Yeah.
positive.
That's so great. It reminds me of a story. So Dennis, my partner's from Spokane, and it turns out Joan Rivers, who I was doing a segment with at the
Yeah.
time, getting ready for, she called me and said, "I'm in Spokane, Washington," and we were in Spokane, Washington. I'm like, "We're in Spokane," so
You're
she
like, why are
invited
we all in Spokane?
right, exactly. So she was performing at this casino there, and we went to dinner with her after. And this older guy, kind of like lumberjack looking type, says, "My wife," I don't know why I'm using this voice, but "my wife really loves you." Not him loves you, but
Of
like,
course, my
but
wife.
she's like, it's always the wife. They always come up and say the wife. And so, but she took this bracelet off of her wrist and gave it to him and said, "Give this to your wife." And I was like, oh my God, this is so powerful. And I knew like, not only is he going to tell that story forever, but
Right.
she'll tell that story. Everyone will know that
Everyone
story.
that knows them that's going to tell that story
Yeah.
for the
And
rest of
it was from her collection of jewelry, which she had. And then she told what I thought was even more interesting. She goes, "I wear extra jewelry so I can do it." I love the story because I'm like, that is, first of all, it's genius.
It's genius.
It's like grassroots fan base building, and also just kind and generous. She was one of the, I know people have a lot of things to say about some of the things she did as her humor. I thought she was hilarious, but
I thought she was amazing. Yeah.
I wish she was here to talk about the world now. But she was also one of the most kind, thoughtful, thank you note writing by hand, like gifts. She was really lovely, and I thought that was a great story, and
And
it's a
like, and
lesson we can all learn.
that's an amazing story. Like,
Yeah.
and I don't know about you, because you've met like almost every celebrity known to.
Oh
I
no.
mean, you've had interactions with like pretty much everyone
Oh.
that's been popular or famous over the last couple decades. You've seen it all. But I always found like the people that were like Robin Williams, the ones that were the most wildly successful,
Mhm.
were the kindest, knew
Yeah.
everyone's name, made sure to like reach out, looked people
Yeah.
in the eye, made them feel like the most important
Yeah,
person in the
yeah,
room,
yeah.
that kind of thing. And what a can you imagine, like, if, like, when we were young or if you were, like, a fan of something like, I always think about
Mhm.
this, like, with Madonna. Like, if I had
Yeah.
met Madonna when I was young and she'd, like, looked into my eyes and, like or given me a bracelet or
Uh-huh.
asked me about, like, what I wanted to do with my life, it would have changed my
Oh,
universe.
totally, totally. And you'd still be telling the story. And by mind you, it's funny you say it because I have met a lot of celebrities, but sometimes the interaction is very brief. Like,
Yes.
actually, I did meet Robin Williams, and his assistant or his publicist had asked me to bring him sandwiches. That was my exchange, was giving him sandwiches. And he was very lovely about it. He didn't eat any of the sandwiches. But I was like, and I called the publicist. I'm like, well, what kind of sandwiches? Like, what is he like? You must know. And they're like, just buy a bunch. And I'm like, okay, I'll buy a bunch of sandwiches.
Alright.
It was that classic, like young kid in New York buying sandwiches for a celebrity, not knowing.
They're,
And
like, sent out to do something and
I
you're
bought
just
like
like, "Oh."
all the 2 turkey clubs, a ham and cheese, like a lettuce
Right.
sandwich. I don't know, and you didn't eat any of them, but he was very lovely about it. He was
That's
very sweet.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Who like, can you dish on any like, who are your other favorite people that did, like, kind the people that you just
Um,
like, "Oh, wow, they were awesome."
oh, Maureen McCormick from the Brady Bunch and from many other things is actually a very
Wow.
good dear friend of mine. And I have a magnolia tree out in the yard here that she had sent for my birthday last year, and it's blooming right
Oh,
now.
no way. Oh,
And
that's
yeah, yeah,
gorgeous.
and she's really lovely. She and I just became friends. I once got Nicole Kidman cereal, but because that was what she wanted. I think it was Frosted Flakes.
Oh my god, I
Um,
love Frosted Flakes.
they're
Who
so
doesn't
good,
love
and she was
Frosted
eating them
Flakes,
right out of the
man?
box. And the other Monica Potter, I adore her. She's a really
She's
wonderful person.
lovely.
Yeah. And Joan Rivers was a really really
I
really
mean, the
nice
Jones
person.
just like a
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
to have a legend be that nice and wear extra jewelry. I mean, that is just
Yeah.
so
Yeah. It's a great.
badass.
Yeah, it really
Yeah.
is. Yeah. So those are a couple,
I
but
won't ask you who like the meanest because like we know better than to talk about that.
mhm. I do have one.
Oh, I've got a few too.
I always went, yeah. Oh, I'm sure. We have to have that conversation.
Oh, we'll
But
have that.
that's when we like, you hit end record and or
Yeah.
like you close the computer, then you
These
unplug the computer,
right.
then you leave the
You make
room.
sure like there are no listening
Yes,
devices
right.
anywhere in the world.
Exactly. Exactly. Like it already
Yeah.
feels like we're FBI right now with
Oh
these
my god,
headsets on a
totally.
stakeout. Yeah.
But it always cracks me up because what I find hilarious is that, the people that are on my list, which is a very short list, so I've been
Yeah.
very
Same
lucky,
here. Yeah.
but they are on a lot of other people's
Oh
lists, so,
yeah.
like, when I'm
Yeah.
doing other jobs, like, they'll come up to me conspiratorially and, like,
Yeah.
cover my mic and be like, "Oh my gosh, this is what happened to me," you know,
Right,
like
right, right. Meanness is rarely an isolated incident,
It is
like, it's
true.
like, that is like and, there are a lot of people, it's like, it will then explain why they did it and how, like, the things that are working against them, and they're sorry, and the next day, they'll be right back to their old
Right,
tricks
like, yeah,
again.
and
Yeah,
everyone and, like, you know the difference.
yeah,
Everyone has a bad day, like, everyone's
yeah,
got a
yeah,
bad day where something's going on
yeah,
in your personal life, you just got dumped or whatever, and you're just a
yeah,
jerk for a little bit.
yeah.
But there's a really big difference between something that is, like,
Oh,
an
sure.
inherent
Totally.
characteristic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you're right, people will know. People already everyone else has a story too. Or
Yeah.
the person, like, walking you up to that person will have that look in their eyes like, "And please meet so and so." You know, they have that look like they're in jail and they're waiting for you to spring them, you
Oh
know?
my gosh, this is the one that it cracked me up the most. Someone whispered in my ear right before introducing me to someone that had, that with the eye kinda look, "Don't let them see you cry." I was like, "Oh my
Oh my
god."
god. Wow. Wow, that would make me wanna cry a little bit, like, that would, like, trigger the little, like, duct
I
vibration.
was like, "What, what, what?" And then
Oh,
they were
oh no.
gone. I was like, "Okay."
Oh no, no, no. That's so funny and scary.
Yeah, it's crazy, but it's gotta be it's like, I'm impressed with you because like, being on the production side has gotta be a lot like, it's fun, and I love all your segments and stuff like that, but it's
Thank you.
kind of amazing to be in control. Do you know what I mean? Like, to be able to make those choices for yourself and be able to pick people and because like, my rule for life now is, like, no a-holes need apply. Like, I'm
Right.
too old.
Okay, that's true. Because the funny, like, as you were saying it, like, when you were talking about control, did you say you might have seen my face glow over and be like, "Yeah," because I don't really feel like I'm in control, like, I really don't. I was like, "Uh-huh."
Yeah, I got control, sure I do.
Like, this isn't coffee, by the way. This is but I
I
do
didn't know Tito's came in a ceramic cup these days.
Right, exactly. But I do feel like I have the, like, no a-hole rule. Like, the team of people. Like I'm working on a show with Christina Hall from Flip or Flop and
Oh, no
Christina
way.
on the Coast. And
Yeah.
she's lovely. I adore her and I adore her husband and the team of people on it. It's like, oh my gosh, we just hit the jackpot. You know, everyone's just really, really good and really thoughtful and cares about each other and looks out for each other. So I love that. Yeah,
And
you're right.
it makes such a difference. And like
Mhm.
it's hard because like when you don't, grow up knowing anything about the business and
Mhm.
stuff, and you just kind of assume that everybody's gonna be amazing because it's the most
Right.
fun job in the world, right?
Right,
Like
right,
we
right.
get paid
Yeah.
like I remember there's this amazing day like on the following, like and Kevin Bacon was my partner and I'd been shot in the chest and like I'm laying on the floor and he's stopping the bleeding, we'd like take a break and I'm just laying there and he's sitting there and people bring us food. And I was like, Kevin, like, this is like the greatest job in the world. Like, we're
Right.
just laying down, sitting down. People bring us any kind of food we want. Like, we could
Amazing.
request red lobster if we wanted
Right.
to, like, and
What
so
was
I
your
always kind of assumed everyone would be like that. And then,
Yeah.
but if you get like a bad set, it is like you start having, what do they call like the Sunday scaries, when you don't want to go to work
Yeah.
on Monday
Oh,
because it's just like,
yes.
you're like, I
Yes.
can't take the stress. I
Yeah.
can't
And you
take
know
it.
you have weeks and weeks more of it to do, which is
Yes, and
yeah.
sometimes months,
Yeah.
and
Oh my
sometimes
God.
it's
What I love that story of you laying on the ground being what's another thing that you were in a scene just being like, oh my God, I love that I get to do this scene. Like
oh,
it
so many, like, there was a great episode of, like, you're so good asking questions. There was a great episode of SVU where I got to have the crap kicked out of me, and so I asked them I was like, "Hey, can I not have a stunt person? Can I do this myself?" And they were like, "It's a really bad idea." When I'm like, "Please, please, 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 please." I was, like, in my 20s, I'm like, I'm really
Right, right.
annoying. So I'm like,
Yeah.
"Please, please,
Yeah.
please, let me do it, let me do it, let me do it." And, so, like, I worked with, like, the stunt person, and I didn't realize that you actually do get the crap kicked out of you. You just have things that protect you, so it, like,
Right.
diffuses the hit. So, like, when
Right.
you're
So you
getting
really
kicked in
are
the
gonna get
ribs
pushed on the ground.
yeah, you're
Oh
really
yeah.
getting kicked in the ribs. It just, like, diffuses the thing, so you don't break the ribs, you just end up with a
It just
bruise
hurt.
like that big. But it was so fun. I remember getting home that night after filming, and I was already, like, black and blue, and so I was, like, when you just strip off your clothes, and husband Marcus is watching me go up the stairs, just, like, taking off all my clothes, and he's like he's like, "Jeez, Diane, what happened?" Like, "What happens at work?" And I'm like, "Marcus, most fun day of my life." Like, it
Oh,
was the most fun I've ever had,
right.
like, working. And they were so many there's so many days like that that I can never believe or, like, even in some of the charity work, like, I used to help, Rosie Perez run this charity that she
Uh-huh.
started after the Crown Heights riots called Urban Arts Partnership.
Yeah.
And our big charity event every year was called the 24-hour plays. So we get all these, like, Pulitzer Prize and Tony Award-winning playwrights. We get, like, 8 of them. We'd get 8 famous directors and then 24 actors they'd get a subject, they'd write the play overnight, we'd rehearse
Mhm.
it all day, and then go up at the American Airlines Theater on Broadway that night in, like, plays of, like, 3 it was and it was, like, the
Insane.
most
Insane.
23 most famous people on earth and me, just because I was on the board, right? It's like, that's the only reason I was there.
Okay, stop. No,
No, but
that's not true.
there was, like, this one day, and I'm enormous, like, so I'm 5'10", and, like, I'm not, like, one of these small, but a lot of, like, Hollywood people, as you know, are very tiny, tiny ladies.
Right. We have to talk about that because I have a theory about that, but we'll get to
I
that in a
wanna hear
second.
okay,
Okay.
after this, you gotta tell me your theory,
Okay.
but,
Yeah.
like so I was standing in a circle, it was me, Demi Moore, Jennifer Aniston, Naomi Watts, and, oh god, who else was in that circle? It was another tiny, tiny, adorable, but, like, super famous actress, and we're all, like, doing vocal warm-ups, like, in this, like, hallway, and I had this I'm like, "What the hell is my life? This is
Right.
amazing! Like,
I
this
mean,
is so
really.
crazy!" Like, I'm
Oh,
like, "How am I here?
I
How am I
love
even
that.
here? Like, I don't
Oh,
belong in this circle," like,
yes,
and
but
it's
you
like,
do.
like, watching everyone make faces and like,
Oh,
"Oh, no, no,"
oh,
like
oh, those are the moments that are the like that no one else will see too, that you can't whip out your camera like those, but you'll
no,
remember
yeah,
those some, oh,
yeah, and
that's
it's
so
just
cool.
like and you're just like, "Huh, this is crazy." I'm
Yeah.
like, "Life turned out pretty cool, man." Like, no
Yeah.
complaints. Okay, so
I
what's your
love it.
theory?
Okay,
And
and
excuse me while I take a sip, look at
I
me.
want you to confirm or just plead the fifth, but I think that is it because men always wanna feel like they're bigger and taller
Yes.
and stronger, that they want like because you always hear that, like, "Oh, such and such is a tiny little thing and so petite," and I'm like, "It's gotta be about the leading man. It's gotta be
Yeah.
kinda based in, like, Hollywood misogyny a little bit,
Oh,
like, kind of." Yeah,
completely, like,
yeah.
completely, and some people are, like, really cool about it, Like, I'll never forget, like, my first big audit, because, like, when switching from modeling to acting, like, nobody wanted to give me a shot, like, literally
Ugh,
nobody. And I went to theater
it's
school,
crazy.
and then they're like, be in a real play. And I was in the Women's Shakespeare Company, no one came to see it, and
Right.
then,
Yeah.
and then, you keep doing things to try and get
Mm-hmm.
legit, and like, no one will do
Mm-hmm.
it. My first big auditions was they were replacing Jennifer Love Hewitt on Party of Five.
Oh,
And
wow.
so they want you for the part and this. I was like, wow. They flew me out to LA and they even like picked out my wardrobe and everything. And I got in the room with all the producers and everyone and Scott Wolf. And Scott Wolf
Ugh,
stood up and he came to about here.
yeah.
And we
He's
all
short.
just
Yeah.
started
Oh,
laughing and
no.
we were like, never mind. I'll see you guys
Oh,
later. Thank you very much.
uh,
But like he was really cool about it.
yeah.
But there are a lot of because I have my little theory is that like almost everyone in Hollywood would have been models had they been tall enough. Like
Yes.
like
You're right. I never thought of that.
yeah.
Oh,
It,
that's interesting.
or thin enough. And it's wild because like the whole time I was a model, I met one person that had an eating disorder. I'm sure there were more that I didn't know about, but like
Sure. Yeah.
basically generally everyone was very young and very, very skinny naturally. Like it
Yeah.
was just
Yeah.
natural. Like
Yeah.
everyone's like eating Taco Bell. It's like, grease coming out of their face and they're still
Right.
a size zero. It was just the
Mm-hmm.
way it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then when I started acting, like in the Women's Shakespeare Company, I was the only one that didn't have an eating disorder. Like everyone had an eating disorder.
Oh my
So it was like all
God.
these chicks who were beautiful, but they were short and then didn't have that like size zero physique.
Yeah.
And it kind of carried on throughout my entire career, noticing this, like how the
Yeah.
prevalence of eating disorders in actresses
Mm-hmm.
and also the height thing. Like there were very few women who were even like proud of their height, but it was
Mm-hmm.
mostly because you're right, of the men. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the men, I mean, I can't even list how many jobs I've lost because I was too tall or like taller than the leading man.
And that's
And
a
then
gut. It's got to be a gutting feeling when you're like, okay, this I cannot change. I can study as much as you like.
right,
You can
right.
change your voice. You can change your hair. You can't change your height very
But you can't
easily.
change your height. And it's wild how many, so like there's some amazing guys. Like I was on a show called Power and Omari Hardwick, who's like crazy sexy,
Mm-hmm.
awesome, amazing dude, love his wife, love his kids,
Uh-huh.
coolest dude. He was like, he was so cool because the director, I was like playing like the editor of Vogue. So I had like the most amazing clothes known to man. Like it
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
insane. And she asked Omar, like, do you mind if I put Diane heels? It makes me like 6'2", 6'3". And he's like, I love a woman I can climb up like a tree. He's like,
Oh, that's
he was
good. Yeah.
had such like power in
Oh,
his esteem, like where he was, like he
right.
didn't
Yeah.
care at all.
Yeah. I
He's
love
like, she
that.
can be taller, I don't mind. That's what goes with the character.
I
And then
love
you
it.
get other guys who are like, can you crouch down? Like the amount of time I've spent like crouching in scenes that I'm like, really? Or they're on
Right.
apple boxes, like lined
Right.
up,
Yeah. Oh my God. You can't believe it. It's
It's like
crazy.
it's so nutty. And it's like, you got nothing to worry about,
Right.
like who
Right.
cares?
Right.
People come in
Ugh,
different shapes and sizes.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wild.
It is. It's such a weird thing. Okay, so what's your favorite thing you're working on now? I know that's hard to pick.
Um, I will say this show for HGTV, Christina on the Coast and Christina in the Country, we're shooting them simultaneously in two different states, which is a little bit stressful. But that's the one where we have two amazing teams.
So
And
which coast and which country? Tell me about these.
so Christina on the Coast is in Orange County,
Ooh,
in
okay.
around Newport Beach, Dana Point, Huntington Beach, that area.
Beautiful.
Yeah, gorgeous. And the other one is in Nashville, Franklin, Tennessee area.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. And I love going down there. I love
I
going to
bet you
Tennessee.
do. I
Yeah.
have so many friends that have moved down there lately.
They're calling it like the Hollywood of the South.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
It's crazy. And real estate there is now like New York,
It's
LA
booming, of
prices. It's
course. Like,
insane.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
But I do
ridiculous.
love it there. And then the other thing I'm doing now is just trying to create and develop and sell more shows, which is the hard part. Cause I will say I'm not great. It's not my favorite thing to sell myself.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Or I mean, and people don't always believe me, but I'm slightly introverted and awkward and
Yeah.
like in some social settings. Like I like a dinner party more than a big party.
Yeah.
And
And I bet you're
like,
great at like pushing other people and
oh
championing
yeah, I
them
would,
more than you are
yes.
yourself.
Yes, yeah, I don't, and so that part is really hard, and I don't know if I'll ever get that good at it. So I hope to do really good work that work comes to me, which isn't always isn't the most assertive. Like I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, has come to me a little bit, but I don't know that's a way to like really survive. But I'm gonna keep going. It's my room for growth.
I know it's like room for improvement. I was there talking
Yeah.
about that too. It's like room for improvement. I've got room for improvement for
Right. I got a
sure.
whole lot of
Lots of
room.
it.
I got lots of room right here. Right.
Oh my gosh, that's so. those shows I've always want. You're gonna have to tell me all the secrets of those shows. Like as someone that
Okay.
has, like I've renovated so many places at this point, and like done most of it. You know, when you can't find anyone to show up to do the work. Like
Uh-huh.
so, I learned how to plumb, and I learned how to weld, and I learned
Really?
how. Yeah, I know like everything. So
Oh
like
my
it
gosh.
cracks me up because like you know how it is like in the city. Like I'll have a girlfriend that she'll get like an estimate for someone that wants to put up a bathroom mirror, and they give her
Mhm.
like $1,200, and I'm like,
Insane.
bullshit. I'm
No,
like,
yeah.
this is me, a stud finder, a
Right.
drill, you
Yeah.
getting a pizza and a bottle of wine. We're
Right,
done. It'll take 10
exactly.
minutes. Like,
Yes.
no,
No,
no.
and my partner and I have flipped a couple houses. We've never done our own plumbing or I'll do a little electrical, but not much.
Yeah, I'll
But
install all the fixtures and stuff.
yeah, yeah.
I won't change it from scratch. I won't change from like
Right.
110 to 220.
Right.
Like, you know, like I won't.
Exactly. And I like fixtures that are in the wall. I don't want like anything that could come out of the ceiling. I would hire out for that. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I do love doing that. And I'm now becoming like a gardener. I love gardening too.
It's the most fun,
It's
isn't
so
it?
nice. It's so soothing. Alone
It's
with my thoughts. The plants don't talk back.
no, they don't talk back. I've been doing a lot of everyone at home knows that I'm spending a lot of time with mom. And so
Uh-huh.
in Florida, they're wearing my Mrs. Roper caftans and just
Yep. I mean, but I mean,
and
I
gardening.
envy that. I envy that because I will say, like, and I know men are wearing them now too, but like, I do think there's something to be said for the light breeze headed up the legs.
Oh,
I think that
it's
sounds kind of
definitely
nice,
helpful. Yeah. It's
right?
definitely the only thing that you have to worry about is like not just the breeze goes up there, but like mosquitoes as well.
Right, a
You know,
lot. Yeah,
you
that's
have to put
true.
a little off in places that you wouldn't normally.
Right.
Which
One
I'm
thing of
not.
the décolleté and then the JJ.
Exactly. Just treat it like deep woods crotch. You know, like
Right, exactly.
it's
Right. It gives deep woods a whole new meaning. Like, right. Like we're heading into the thicket, kids. We're just gonna. I'm sorry.
Okay, this is what they was telling producer Danny recently. I was going to visit some of my godkids that live in Europe, and I ended up taking Austrian Air over. And you know the little amenities bags
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
get. I
yeah.
kid you not. The name of the brand, right? Was the amenity brand was Freudian Wood. I was
No,
dying.
come
Yes,
on.
yes. I saved everything. I was laughing so hard, and like no one else. Like we're open, and I'm like.
Right. Well,
Anyone else? Anyone think this
no.
is hilarious?
Okay. So that's so funny you say that because my partner and I used to have this little cottage on a lake up in Northeast PA, the Poconos. And
Ooh.
up there, like in like the more fancy places, like people will name their house.
Oh,
You know,
yes, yes,
and
yes.
we're like, that just feels a little much for us. But we're like, we got to do something. So
We need a
call it,
fun fake, like
right. So
one.
yeah,
Yes.
so we called it Morning Wood, and no one. And you can, but we never like had anything printed up. We didn't get a sign, but we were like, oh, because whenever someone asked, we calling it Morning Wood, and it was so interesting to see who would know, who would think we didn't know, and other people they're like, oh, it sounds so charming and quaint. I'm like,
Oh, yes.
yeah, but
Meet you at Morningwood.
right,
Yes.
please join us at Morning Wood. and so, and because some of these people like, okay, it's a house, we don't need to call it like, people are very funny with their things.
It always cracks me up. Yes, the ones that have names, but I love naming things. Like I'll name almost any inanimate object.
I do. I have named my car, or
Yeah,
I haven't
name
named
all
my
my
recent car, but I do like that. It has to be somewhat ironic or silly.
right something
Yeah.
ridiculous. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
all of my when things were going more fantastically, I love cars and I would like collect cars,
Mhm.
and they were all named after Spartan leaders against the slave rebellion against
Oh,
Rome.
wow.
Yeah. And, so it was hilarious. So I have like Gattacus and Spartacus and
Well, that's
Crixus, and then I
good.
had Gary. You know,
I love the basic name on an object. I really do. Or a dog.
Oh my God, like the best.
I like a dog named Gary or something. Like I like
seriously.
yeah.
Well,
I like
okay,
that.
so like down like in Florida, it's talking of gardening. So like this giant taro root plant, right? You know how giant they can get, right? They're the kind where you have like you can use one leaf as like a 3-foot big umbrella, like if you're in the tropics.
Right.
And randomly, like so there's kind of nowhere to shop around there, right? So
Uh-huh.
I'm not much of a Walmart shopper.
Right.
For a zillion reasons,
Yeah,
because
sure.
like I believe
Nope.
you want people to be hired in America, you can't
Mhm.
get like 12 tube socks for $3.99,
Right, that's
that
true.
are made in
That's
China,
true.
right? Like
Yeah.
you try and
Yeah.
where we were getting our plants, and they were throwing out like all these plants, and like we found this giant like taro plant that I looked online, like we were to buy it like at a real nursery. It was like $500.
Right,
It was ridiculous.
crazy. Yeah.
We got it for like $17, but it was insane.
I
And
do
like
love
she
a
marked it
bargain.
down.
I do love.
Yeah. And by the way, like no one was working the garden section. So I ended up going to like the Walmart garden section every day and watering everything because it was making me super sad that everything was just
Okay,
dying.
you are
I
like
was like, this is
you are like a common
heartbreaking.
law employee. Like it's like a common law marriage or common
It
law
was just
stabber.
like breaking
People
my heart.
people would start asking where things are, and
Oh,
you'll
they
know,
did.
and you'll
Yeah.
know the answers. You're
Yeah.
like,
I was
oh,
like,
that's
it's
the
over
aisle 20.
there. It's like, here,
Right.
if you want tomato fertilizer, it's this way.
Right.
You should try this one. But it was
Can I ask you, is there a risk of an alligator where you live down there?
okay.
Where you,
It's so
that
much
because
more
that's
than a
where.
risk. It's so much more than a risk of an alligator. It's so weird just saying my mom, but because I always think of it like my parents, but like
Yeah.
they live in one of those gated communities in Florida where like it's like a few houses on like a little lake and then a few houses
Uh-huh.
on a little lake and a few houses on a little lake. And inside this little lake, and I have little dogs like you. I have a
Yeah.
tiny little Maltipoo, and
Mm-hmm.
then I never thought I'd have a cat in my life, but I have a cat that was born into my hands who thinks he's a dog
Oh,
named Velvis. Yeah. So
oh,
like he's a hoot,
I love
but
it.
way bigger than the dog. Like, but so in this little thing at 5 a.m. every morning, this huge alligator comes out. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No. That's the hard part. That's
Oh,
hard.
comes out and suns itself for 2 hours on the neighbor's porch.
Wait.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
With its
that's not
mouth,
cool.
like with its mouth
Just
open,
ready to roll. Just
was
ready for
ready to roll.
action.
Just hangs out there, warms up or whatever it's doing. And then at usually like 7:30 rolls back in. And now I know it's in there. So like I can't walk.
Oh,
Like I don't want to go
yeah. You
anywhere near this
can't. Yeah,
thing.
that's terrifying.
But this is the thing that makes me the craziest. Like my parents had lived there for like 12 years. And like everyone in the neighborhood knows about this gator. Not a single person had named it.
Oh, yeah, that is weird.
I think that's weird, right?
That
Like if
is
you have an
odd.
alligator
Yeah.
that shows up
Yeah,
every day
right.
for 2
Every day.
hours, like name
They're
the
a
thing.
resident. They're a resident. Like they're like
Right,
the super.
exactly.
They're like the building. They're the complex manager or something. You
Okay,
got to
so
give them a name.
yeah, exactly.
I
I had a
agree.
fan
I agree.
contest, so we named it Jody.
Uh, Jody's good. I like that.
It's finally spreading around the neighborhood of like
Oh,
octogenarians.
I love.
Doris and Don were the first to adopt it. This couple that like are late 80s, always fully done up in like makeup, and he's got the gold
I
chains,
love
and they're
it.
both
Oh, I
chain
love it.
smoking in the covered porch.
Oh my
Diane, come
God.
over here. I got a story for you about Engelbert Humperdinck, you know?
First of all, I love an Engelbert Humperdinck reference. That was a big artist in that was my parents' favorite artist. Everybody Loves Somebody Sometime was their
Oh,
song.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Doris
you
likes
have
to
a
tell me
lot. Are you
stories about
writing?
dancing with him at the Holiday Inn. Yeah.
Oh, that's a lot. I want to know more. But yeah, are you writing all this stuff down? Because you might forget, and this is good stuff for you.
There's so much crazy stuff. I keep writing down stuff about, yeah, my mom, and then I hope she never sees it. Like I accidentally saw one of her boobs the other day, and
It's a lot. Just
I'm
one.
scarred.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah,
wait.
it was like
Oh,
super weird. I've never seen my mom in branded clothing of any kind.
yeah. I don't
And
think
for
I've
some
either.
reason, I came out of my bedroom, and she was standing on the kitchen counter wearing a crop top a crop top with Snoopy and Woodstock on it. I was like, that everything about this is weird. Like, why are you on the counter? Why
Yeah.
are you in that
How did
crop
we
top?
get here?
Like,
Yeah.
but mom has always had what I like to call National Geographic boobs. Um,
I know. I mean, you know instantly what that means.
yeah, and
too.
it doesn't matter. It's not even like it's like any ethnicity. Like you could be like an Alaskan Malamute, or you could be like a white
like
person from
just
they're not hot.
a lifetime of no support.
Yeah, a
Basically,
lot, and like
that's what
sometimes even
happens.
things pushing them down, right? You know, like
Right. Right. Wait.
and so it was very precarious anyway, like where the edge of the shirt was and the edge of the boob. And she
Right.
reached up to scratch her back, and I was like, okay, I gotta pretend
Oh
like
boy.
nothing is
Yeah.
happening. Like I just gotta
Yeah.
like,
Just like.
yeah, it was and it looked like an old man's testicle. Like it
Oh
was a
yeah.
lot of vein. Yeah, it was a lot of
Yeah.
veins, some wiry hair. It was
Wait. Have you let your mom see your special? Your comedy?
yeah, she's watched it a few times. She's like, I don't know why you have to be gross. You know?
Well, one time I was performing. That is such a thing. I get it. My parents. I was performing at a place called Comics. I don't think it's around anymore.
Oh my God, no, Comics. That was on 14th. It used to be my favorite.
So beautiful. It was a
Yeah.
beautiful venue. And I didn't tell them. I go, I just have to run in here real quick. And I sat them at the bar. I sat them at the bar outside the actual stage, and I didn't tell them I was inside performing. I didn't have them see my show because it was dirty, too dirty.
It was dirty.
And I used to portray my mom as like somebody she wasn't, like a chain smoking kind of
Of
like
course.
former stripper, which my mom wasn't, but I used to portray her as that.
Yeah. My mom was
Because
always like, "You have to stop telling people that I'm a lesbian." And I'm like, and
is
I'm
she?
like,
Is
"No,
she?
she and my dad were married 54 years." But
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
but I was always like convinced because she does I've never I've only seen her in makeup once, and it was at my, and like I hired like the whole, like I had the whole gang from like SVU, my hair and makeup people come down and like, for 2 weeks into like Dominican to like do hair and make. We had a great time. And I'm like,
Amazing.
Mom, use them. Like I saw her and it was like Katharine Hepburn in the Twilight years had put on her mascara. Like it was everywhere, not from crying or anything. It was just
Right.
everywhere. And I'm like, Mom, we have people for this. Like, that's the only time I've ever seen her in makeup. And she was a math professor, so she's very,
Right.
she's
So
very
that's where you get your
very.
book. That's where you get your smarts. Was your
Dad
father?
was a real federal attorney, but
Wow. Okay. So it's
his
all in the
no,
blood. Like you got
they
lots
both
of intelligence like
they're
coursing
both
through all your
smarter than I
veins.
ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like it always cracks me up because Mom will tell me these stories about like the pool, like at like the housing complex. She's like,
Hmm.
"Oh, there was this girl there that couldn't swim." So I was like, "Come sit on my lap." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, how old was this girl, Mom?" "Oh, like
Right.
40." I'm like,
Uh,
"Okay,"
okay.
but I'm
Yeah.
like, "You had her sit on your lap." Like she tells me these stories where I'm just like,
Right. Right.
so I always thought like if Dad died, like if all of a sudden Mom just like came out, she's just from
Right.
that era where I
Yeah.
don't even think she knows.
Right.
But I
Right.
always think there's a bit of a
Yeah.
possibility.
There
And
may
you
be
know
a
what?
little. Yeah.
That's cool.
Everyone likes to dabble now and then. Just a little.
Right. Have a little fun before you
Yeah.
go, Mom.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
you're
Exactly.
letting young women sit on your lap
Why
while you
not?
teach them to
Right.
swim. Huh?
Right. What's another few inches from there? You just like,
But she's always like, "Stop it." And then my sister gets really mad at me and I'm like, whatever. I
well.
did like a moth story I did like a moth hour about it. I think I'll put in the storytelling.
Oh my God, really? Oh my God.
So I know
Well,
what you mean. Like it's
yeah,
sometimes you're just like, please don't listen.
right. Just
Please
don't.
don't
Just
watch.
you're better off not knowing it sometimes. But I mean, part of me wonders if I should have had them come in, but maybe it was for the
It's
best at the
so
time.
hard though, because like, and I'm sure this happens too. Everyone always thinks everything is true, right?
Right, right. Yeah. They take it way too literally. I don't think they really understand. Well, also, like, there wasn't the comedy scene when they, what they saw in comedy was like the one comic on a talk show, like once a week,
Right.
back then. So they didn't really, the concept, Bob Hope was their comic. You know what I
Right.
mean?
They weren't watching like Netflix specials,
Right.
like where someone's
Right.
telling,
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's
yeah.
true.
Yeah. So like, yeah, even my current one, it's all about a bad date. And everyone's like, "Who's the date with?" And I'm like, it's a bunch of people, and it's
Right. Right.
half of it's made up, and
Completely. Love it. Yep.
yeah.
Exactly.
So that's wild. So like, what's it like if you could like, what's your goal for like the future? What's like your favorite thing? Like if you could be anything in the world, like if I could be anything in the world, I'd want to be like Jon Stewart in his heyday. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right?
I would like to do more kind of I would like to do more scripted comedy, which is a really hard thing to get into now. But for me, I mean, but like I like the idea of doing something more scripted because of so even if it was hosting, like so much I do of what I do is off the cuff and unscripted, even if it's a guest on a show.
Yeah.
And it's so I would just like a little bit more structure, even if it's although I would do improv comedy too, but I would like to do something a little bit more scripted. But
That'd be really
boy,
cool.
yeah, we'll see. Who knows? Put it out in the universe. That's what I say.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I know. I'd like to do a scripted comedy too. I would like that because you play mean people long enough, everyone's like, "You're not funny," and I'm like,
It's so weird. It's so weird how people think are so shaped by what is clearly scripted that they're seeing. You know what I mean?
"Yeah." Like
I
people
mean,
ask me if I'm a real lawyer, and I'm like,
isn't that
"No,
wild? It's
yeah,
really fascinating.
not at all."
But it speaks to the credibility you bring to the performance, but also like it's not just like people on the street that are thinking that you're serious. It's the person in the casting room or like they're this thing, or whether you're like it. Well, it used to be even worse then, I think, because there was a time when if you were on TV, you couldn't do movies, or if you were movies, you couldn't do a
Oh, you couldn't
commercial,
do anything.
and you
You couldn't
couldn't
do
do music.
commercials. You couldn't do
So
this. You couldn't do that.
and
Yeah.
finally, that has broken down a little bit because everyone was just like, "I want the money, I'm doing it,"
Yeah, exactly.
and so that has helped break down some of those barriers. And now I feel like the rules, rules,
The rules
schmools,
don't apply so much, but
yeah.
like getting through the gatekeepers and
Oof,
stuff, that's always the
yeah,
hardest part
absolutely,
because
absolutely.
those are like, did you ever watch the show Episodes?
Oh, so good. I
Oh
love
my,
the
right,
opening
the
sequence
best. I
too.
always think that the head of comedy who's like,
Yeah,
like
that blonde
that's
yeah, yes. Yeah, and are you watching Hacks? Are you watching Hacks?
I love hacks.
So good. Well, Caitlin, what's her name? Caitlin. I just know her Instagram handle. I'm
Is it the
Caitlin, or
young
hello, it's
one?
Caitlin.
That's how
She
I know
plays
her.
at the end. She plays the Netflix exec.
Oh my God, yes,
And she's
yes.
so good. And she has a Caitlin Riley is her name, and her father was a longtime character on General Hospital. He passed away a couple years ago, and she just became a TikTok sensation for her
No
one
way.
person improv stuff. I mean, she's always been auditioning, I'm sure, but it really took that, I think, to get her um,
That's
really noticed by
wild.
people. And she has 2 episodes where she appears on Hacks, and she's
I mean,
fantastic. She's just great. She's
look
very
at that.
Hollywood. She's very Hollywood on that.
That's yeah, I like if anyone network executives are their own special breed.
Oh, completely. And I love the way they portray the agents and the agent's assistants on both of those shows. It's
There's the
hilarious.
one, the
So well done.
boss's daughters. Like
She's so good. She's hilarious. She's so good. That must be really a fun part to write for too.
it must be
You know?
really, really fun.
Yeah.
But it's like what other shows are you watching at the moment?
Okay, so we finished Hacks. We watched The Staircase, which is that true crime. It's a
Is it
scripted
worth it?
version. Well, yes, I think it's really good, but it's interesting because we all want it to be all tied up in a little bow at the end.
Yeah.
But the problem is there's really no real true explanation. Only 2 people were in that room, and we don't know if he killed her or didn't, you know?
Right.
But I did like it. So, what did we watch? I did watch Queer as Folk, and I only watched the first episode, the new version of that. I
Oh yeah,
felt old. I felt a little
like
old. I felt a little old in it. And also, like, my life as a gay man is so different than that of a 20 or 30 year. I mean, also, even when I was in my 20s, 30s, like the show is known for like the club scenes and
yeah.
and my club scene life was not at all like is ever represented on TV. Because
What,
mine wouldn't have been that
like
interesting.
what was your club
You know
life
what I mean?
like?
Like, well, I
Brian.
was a bartender, but I didn't like, club scenes, whether it's gay or straight, tend to like portray like the drug scene, the excessive drinking, the
Oh
like
yeah,
sex
yeah.
in the bathroom, and that was none of those things happened to me.
I like seriously,
Yeah,
I know what
yeah.
you're talking about. Yeah.
So when I see club life like portrayed on a show, it's hard for me to wrap my head around it, and feel like it's a representation of me because it's not for personally what my life was like
Person
at
it was
all.
like, yeah. And I always
Yeah.
feel like that. I'm like, if they showed like a bunch of kind of like nerdy girls dancing around like their purses
Right.
they put in the
Yeah.
middle of the
Right.
circle, I'm like,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
would probably
Like
be more.
a bunch of drunk girls going, "Oh my God. Oh
Oh
my God.
yeah.
Am I going to call him? I'm going to call him right now. I'm going to call him."
Don't call him, Becky.
Yeah.
Don't call
Right.
him.
Exactly. So that would have been mine too. So, and I'm blanking on what else we watched, but we're ready for a new one. We're ready for a new show.
For something good, right? There's
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
room for something good.
Yes, yes. I do love Handmaid's Tale. Oh, Only Murders in the Building, I think, is coming out next week or a week and a half from now. And I
Ooh.
loved season 1 of that. That was so
Did
great.
you watch the morning show? Since you've spent so much time
Yes,
on
I did. Yes. In fact, I saw so many parallels between like even some of the sets. I saw it was interesting. Jennifer Aniston's character felt very much like a hybrid of particularly Katie. And I
yeah.
saw a lot of Katie scenes in her dressing room was modeled after Katie's, no question.
Wow.
Yeah. And I like Katie Couric very much. So it's not a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the show and
Me
the
too.
morning,
Katie's
they're
always
so
been like
different.
super nice and pleasant and
Super
lovely
nice,
and
super
yeah.
cool, very funny. I enjoyed working with her so much. So I don't think what they wrote for Jennifer is like, oh, this is definitely Katie. But I saw that they were like inspired by what Katie was as a star and her environment and things like that. And of course, the what's his name? Not Drew Carey. What is it? Steve Carell. Sorry,
Steve Carell
Steve
doing the
Carell's character kind of being modeled after
Matt Lauer.
Matt Lauer. It was obvious that they were drawing some comparisons there and their relationship with or without that storyline. But what a show! What a show!
It's like it's crazy. Well, I mean, it's funny. Like I'm seeing someone now who worked for a very, very big news personality that was taken down in the Me Too movement
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff. And
yeah.
it's wild. Like, and so I thought this was like a really fascinating thing about Steve Carell because I'm like, well, have you he's talked to him?
Yeah.
And I'm like, is there any kind of remorse or any, and he's like, yeah, he has no idea that he did anything
you
wrong.
mean Matt Lauer? Oh, the other person, the person
So
you're
yeah,
referring
the
to. Got it,
person,
got it.
the
Yes,
real
the
person
person.
that
Yes,
is not
got
Matt
it.
Lauer, that this
Yes,
person
got it, got it,
that
got it.
shall not
Yeah.
be named. But like, I'm
Yes,
like,
got
when
it.
you talk to them, I'm like, do they have any? And he's like, yeah, he feels like the victim. He has no idea that
Right.
he did anything wrong.
Wow.
He doesn't
Well,
get it.
I mean, I'm sure their world is very isolated right now, so they don't have, and they also their original world of
Yeah.
fame was also isolated to those who were kind of yesing him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I always feel bad for like, yeah, I think about that a lot with a lot of the people who are, you know, in the moment, that I always call it getting excited about themselves, that you take it,
Mm-hmm.
because like the great lesson of SVU, like when I
Yeah.
started when I was like 24,
Yeah.
you know, we had people who were begging to play rapists for like the top of show, which is not a lot of money,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And so it was
Yeah.
like a real lesson in like, it comes, it goes, don't take any
Yeah.
of it seriously, like
Right.
just enjoy it for the moment, like that
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. And there are a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people that start taking it a little too seriously and get what I call excited about themselves.
Uh-huh.
And then especially when they're surrounded by yes men and stuff. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, it's gonna be brutal when that comes crashing down.
Oh yeah. In fact,
Brutal.
because I worked at Weekend Today for a long time, and I was a celebrity booker at that time, and it was
Oh my God, that's
interesting.
crazy.
Well, it was interesting too, because sometimes you would find people that were mad that it was Weekend Today, and others that were thrilled that they were getting
Right.
booked on Weekend Today. So, and it was always like, oh, okay. So it was like you could see a trajectory for some people. This is one musical artist in particular that that was really like, you know, this was a way on the way in their mind. This is a on the way down of their
Right.
trajectory, because
Yeah.
they were not booked on weekday. So they were on
Right.
weekend, and it was like, and that we wouldn't pay. It's so interesting too. Also, like celebrities that have everything paid for them, and then suddenly, when they have the most money, everything
Mhm.
is paid for them.
Of
And
course.
then when like they need the support, and they're like, you know, not making as much money, the freebies stop coming. So it's like
Ends.
this
Yeah,
double
completely.
whammy. It's like, really, I can see how that gets in a person's head completely, because it's like, oh, damn, it is a cruel. It's not I shouldn't say cruel. It's not an easy business.
It's not an easy, but
No.
I remember like when I first found out about, they're like, oh no, well, we're gonna say no to this spot because it's at the 9 o'clock hour, you know, or whatever it
Right. And
was,
you're
you know,
like,
and I'm like,
yeah.
what does it matter? You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah. And I do think it's changed. There used to be a time when it's like, they would only do one show because they
Yeah.
would and give them the exclusive, and nobody else would want to do it. But now, like, I think there's more willingness to do everything, because there's so many places that it's hard to even get people to know about your show,
Right.
because
And
there's
there's just so much content.
yeah, it's just too much. So it's
Like,
like,
I
yeah,
don't
you
even
got
know
to
how
do
you
it
deal
all.
with that as a producer. Like with the
Ugh,
amount, like how do you compete with the amount of content that's like out
man,
there?
I don't know.
I
I
guess
don't
it
know
just
the
has to be
answer.
good, right? And your
Yeah,
shows are
you just
good.
make it as good as you can and hope for. I would say it takes a series of several small miracles for anything to actually really happen. Like whether it's the show, like when we get a show greenlit, I'm like, wow, we've had like 10 or 12 small miracles already.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can continue it, you know?
It's brilliant. That's the way to go.
Yeah.
All right. I
Yeah.
don't want to take too much of your time. Is there anything you want to tell everyone at home?
How delightful you are, and so thrilled I am to be here.
Wow. Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Well, flattery
Yeah.
will get you everywhere. Thank you.
No, truly, I'm just, we haven't had a chance to talk at length in a while, but I do find watching you and and your journey and how you express yourself and all of it, I just find it really delightful and honest and fun and entertaining and and authentic, and I just love it. So I'm
Thank you.
absolutely humbled and flattered and delighted to be here. So thank you.
And seriously, like like in all honesty, like ditto. And is there anything seriously, and push tell everyone where they can find your shows and
Well,
where they can
my
find.
sure. Okay, so if you follow me on almost any platform, it's Brian Balthazar, Brian Balthazar, like the restaurant, but
Like the
but
restaurant, the
no
greatest
relation.
restaurant?
Yeah, but no relation. And even when I go there,
Unfortunately.
yeah, they're like, if I go there, they're like, whatever, it's a 20-minute wait. Like they don't
Really?
care. They're it's like
It's the worst. You're like, I just
right,
want oysters. I just
right,
want
yeah,
oysters.
exactly.
Love
But
Balthazar.
and that's where I kind of put all my stuff on Instagram, Twitter, and I have a food blog, I have a pop culture blog, but all of it can be found on
I know
my
you have like you have a ton of amazing stuff.
oh, thank you.
No,
Thank
you
you.
really do.
Thank you.
And we
Yeah,
should work on some sort of
let's
scripted
do
comedy.
something. Let's do
Yeah.
it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
I'm game. So, and you have to come down here if you need a little escape to the suburbs of Pennsylvania where
I always need an
I'm
escape.
currently. I mean,
It's beautiful, by the way.
it's all right
I'd come
here.
just to like see the garden.
Yeah, please do.
You'll
It's just
come
very
have to see
quiet.
the taro plant that's so big that we had to
Yes.
name it. We named it
Yes.
Carl.
And I
It
want
was
to meet
just
Jody. I want to meet Jody from a
afar.
distance. Yeah,
From afar.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like
I'm
this.
always like, how did nobody name this guy?
I love it.
So weird to me.
It's so good.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I can't wait to see what you do next. And
same here.
Yeah, you're a hero and an icon.
Thank you. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Just take it. Take the compliment.
Thank you.
All right.
Do the Valerie Cherish. The thank you.